Mr. Chu, I got to hand it to you. You've actually done something that in the last 3 to 4 years has not happened. You have unified Republicans and Democrats because we have serious concerns.
Republicans and Democrats, who usually act divided on, well, pretty much everything, actually united during the TikTok hearings in early 2023 to advocate for privacy. Everyone knows now that digital devices are everywhere and how pervasive tracking's getting. So what's weird is that if privacy is one of the few issues everyone agrees on, why aren't any substantial laws being passed to protect it? It turns out they're stalled, because solving the problem of privacy comes at a cost. We're faced with these dilemmas, these challenges, where we'd have to choose between upholding our right to privacy or sacrificing something else that's just as valuable. And while we may be able to overcome two of these dilemmas, the last one may be impossible to solve. So what are these dilemmas stalling privacy progress? Let's take a look. Alright, so dilemma number one. To give you context, I'm going to tell you the story of an issue that started way back, 140 years ago, because something remarkable happened in the 1880s that would change society forever. It began with this New York-born entrepreneur named George Eastman. In 1888, Eastman introduced the Kodak camera. Yeah, that Kodak. It was revolutionary, because for the first time, cameras were portable, and taking a picture was as simple as pressing a button and turning a hand crank. His invention made photography accessible to the masses. And there's one group who's especially keen on Eastman's new invention: newspapers. They start taking pictures of everything, and they quickly realize that they sell a lot of papers when they get sneaky footage from posh events. For the longest time, high society parties were private affairs. The gossip of who had been where and with whom had been just that. It was gossip. But now, anyone could photograph anything and print photoreal proof. So newspapers were scrambling to take pictures of this mysterious upper class. But was it okay that they were profiting off of a picture of someone else's private life? Either way, it became big business. Suddenly the number of newspapers more than tripled, from 4,400 to 13,000 papers between the 1880s and 1890s. So this is the first major dilemma stalling privacy progress: privacy versus profit. And today there is a lot more information to profit off of than just photographs. People's search history, preferences, location data, everything we click and search is the foundation for one of the most lucrative industries of all time, the data industry. As the saying goes, data is the new oil, and more privacy would mean a huge hit to many companies' bottom lines. For example, when Apple started providing its customers the option to opt out of Facebook's tracking, Facebook lost $10 billion.
It's effectively a triple whammy, the first of which is absolutely the Apple privacy changes known as IDFA.
So you can see why making privacy laws in the US can be a challenge. As President Calvin Coolidge once stated, "The business of America is business." So many in Congress may hesitate to strengthen privacy laws if it means hurting business. But the difficulties in trying to strengthen privacy laws don't stop here. There's another privacy dilemma we've been dealing with for a while, and a good example of it happened in the 1960s. In 1963, after JFK's tragic assassination, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was thrust into the presidency. Not only was Johnson tasked with uniting a grieving country, but he was faced with another less well-known task: what to do with the government's use of mainframe computers. These weren't the computers in everyone's homes yet. These were huge, high-powered systems that took up entire rooms. Federal agencies were starting to use these systems to collect all kinds of data, from census data, to medical information, to military records, to honestly the types of cereals families were buying. Because, at the time, there weren't limits on what could be collected. All this useful data could theoretically help the government to provide better services for each community. But the various government agencies were struggling to share that information fluidly, and this was causing big delays. So when the White House heard about these delays, President Johnson's administration thought, just put all the data into one place in the White House. It'll be so convenient. So in the fall of 1965, President Johnson announced the National Data Bank, which was essentially a government-controlled operation collecting tons of data on millions of Americans in a single place. And people were understandably not happy. This brings us to our second big dilemma: privacy versus convenience. While it was certainly convenient to have all that information in one place, it created a scary surveillance program. Ultimately, the uproar killed the National Data Bank and brought to life over 100 pieces of legislation on data privacy in the following years. But But today, there is so much more data being collected on us than in the 60s. Smartphones, smart homes, smart cars, smart cities, microphones, cameras, there is potential for surveillance everywhere. But we don't want to give up all this tech because it's fun, it's helpful, it makes our lives easier. So, at the moment, we live with it because we either feel the convenience is worth the cost or we feel like we have no choice. Now, I want to talk to you about the last dilemma. But this one is the hardest of them all. It really came to the forefront in 2001, after the tragedy of September 11th. One of the many things that came from that day was a huge reminder that although we want to keep our friends and family safe, sometimes safety is entirely out of our control. However, if you could do anything to keep people safe, wouldn't you? That's why it's not hard to imagine the motivation behind the decision the government made after 9/11. Americans were terrified of further attacks, so they wanted to do anything they could to better defend the country. And by this time, everyone was communicating with computers and phones. So, what if the government could look at everyone's communications in order to prevent another tragedy? Only 45 days after 9/11, they passed the Patriot Act, which allowed warrantless search and seizure of phone lines, online actions, and other digital activities.
Today, the president signed a big new anti-terrorism bill that would expand the government's ability to track down terrorists, but at some cost.
As we wage the war on terror overseas, we're also going after the terrorists here at home. And one of the most important tools we have used to protect the American people is the Patriot Act.
It was one of the fastest laws the US government has ever passed. Americans were told this was a temporary measure until a better solution was found. But the Patriot Act is still in place today, and this surveillance is being misused. It's being used to target minority groups and citizens on both sides of the aisle, and there's little evidence that mass surveillance has been effective in actually countering terrorism. Of the 143,074 warrantless searches that occurred between 2003 and 2005, only 53 reported criminal referrals to prosecutors, and 0 were for terrorism. So, the aftermath of 9/11 was the moment that made us grapple with the biggest dilemma of them all: privacy versus security. Because of these 3 dilemmas, it makes sense why privacy laws are so tough to create. Even if everyone is concerned about privacy, we're also concerned about profit, convenience, and security. But what if we didn't have to make any sacrifices? What if we could have successful businesses that are built on protecting privacy instead of eroding it? What if we could have the conveniences of the modern world and maintain our privacy? And what if stronger privacy actually made us safer? These aren't theoretical questions, they're actually happening. Individuals and businesses, frustrated by the lack of privacy progress, have been creating new technological solutions to enhance our privacy without giving up the other things we value. Let me give you some examples. In 2017, 2 technologists, Moxie Marlinspike and Trevor Perrin, were awarded the Levchin Prize in Cryptography for creating a technology that allows for end-to-end encryption of phone calls and instant messaging. Marlinspike used this technology to create the Signal app, a private messaging, voice, and video call app now being used by over 40 million people. By providing the convenience that's expected in the modern age, but without sacrificing privacy, Signal is proof that privacy and convenience don't have to be at odds. Another example is Zcash. In 2016, Zcash pioneered the use of zero-knowledge proofs, a breakthrough method in cryptography and computer science. This allowed them to make the world's first truly private cryptocurrency. Zcash allows for digital payments without having a company keep track of your transactions or leaking your transaction data online. Then, in 2019, Brave Browser launched. With all the convenience of popular browsers like Google Chrome, Brave Browser allows users to surf the web more privately by reducing web page tracking and blocking targeted advertisements. In July 2023, Brave had 60 million monthly active users. These 3 examples stand out in our current world of widespread data collection as models of innovation. They show that giving people privacy doesn't mean killing business or convenience. But interestingly, they also touch on the privacy versus security dilemma too, because there's 2 ways of looking at security: being able to find bad guys and being able to protect good guys. Having good privacy protection helps people protect themselves from many types of safety issues, like stalking, identity theft, discrimination, and fraud. All of these examples, Signal, Zcash, and Brave, can actually make us safer, by protecting our privacy. But the privacy versus security dilemma is a complicated one, and these examples don't fully resolve it. We're gonna save a longer discussion of this dilemma for another video. But for now, as it stands, solutions like Signal, Zcash, and Brave are still in their infancy. But what's important is that they're thinking outside the box. And that's what it's gonna take. Because whether it's through technology or through Congress somehow finding a way to strengthen privacy, these dilemmas are still important challenges that require us to think deeply and work together to solve. Like you saw in this video, over time, our privacy has faced many challenges and trade-offs, and in today's digital world, it's no different. That's why our mission at Zcash Media is to make videos like this one that educate and advocate for your privacy. If you liked this video, please consider sharing it and subscribing to our channel for more content like this.